host you today. First thing first, let's give a huge shout out to Suffolk University, Sir's Sir Business School for hosting this amazing event right here at the heart of Boston. This location is the perfect launch pad to dive into the Boston's thriving scene, surrounded by the industry leaders and groundbreaking ideas. They have been our amazing partner since last year, and we are lucky to have them again this year. Now, Startup Boston Week is all about connection, bringing together every part of Greater Boston and New England startup community. From every industry, every department, every stage, bootstrapped or funded, there's something here for everyone. We have got 5 full days of learning, networking, and straight up inspiration coming all up our way. I also want to highlight that the Startup Boston Week is driven by the passion of volunteers. Yep, most of the scene behind this event and those working here today are volunteering their time. It's truly a labor of love, and we are so grateful to you being here and contributing to the growth of startup community. Once again, thank you all for being here at Startup Boston Week. Let's get ready to dive into our session by Harish Karthikeyan and Nirav Shah on the AI Avengers crafting your dream team for machine learning success.
Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I am Harish, and I work as a data scientist on the AI team at Toast here in Boston. And I've also been a part of Startup Boston for a couple of years now. I work with their programming team, and I've been helping them design a few events this year. And for background, I think about half a decade back, I did run a small software startup myself, which was bootstrapped. But eventually, in about 2 years, we kind of had to close shop because we ran out of funds. And I'm pretty sure I did not have the dream team back then. So I'm very excited to listen what Nirav has to say today. And yeah, Nirav, will give it to you.
All right. Thanks, Harish, for inviting again. Looks like I did a decent job last year.
Oh yeah, you did more than decent.
Very excited morning, guys. So would love to talk about, obviously our challenges are different as I, talked with you before the session compared to various startups. But in a way, we are bootstrapping as a, consulting and service organization. But a few of our clients are startups. So would be happy to share the perspective.
Awesome. So I know that you started with a career in manufacturing and then you pivoted and moved into AI and ML. So could you walk us through your journey of how you started up as a data science professional and now that you own your own data insights company?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Feels like a long time ago. As I like to joke that we were not called data scientists 15, 16 years ago when I got my break. I was a chemical engineer 5, 6 years out of grad school. And my experience was in life sciences and manufacturing. The company I joined, a small company called Umetrics, they were looking for somebody who could work with their clients in life sciences. So with a deep expertise in pharmaceutical and biotech. So the domain knowledge was important for them. In fact, I didn't know anything about what they were doing. I had not heard of the company. I'm even not sure how did I apply. Somewhere, some job board. I think it was Craigslist on job section. So when they interviewed, I was honest about it, and obviously my resume said that there was nothing. But the thing they promised was that we will teach you the data aspect of it. What we are looking for is somebody with the strong domain expertise to work with clients. And till day, even I think the domain expertise helps a lot. Obviously, this is for experience per people compared to like students out of grad school or something. But I always tell my employees as well as my students that if you have to marry the data skills with the domain expertise. Anyways, cut the story short, that's how they took a bet on me. And I still remember the words of my founder, and she was the prior company's founder. And she was like, "Oh, don't worry, within 6 months to 1 year, data would be in your DNA." And little did I know that down the line I would, start my own consulting.
Nice, nice. We all love a good startup story, don't we?
Yeah.
Right. So let's dive right into, when you were building your AI ML team or initial team. So how did you establish the requirements for that? So as a startup operator, like what can one learn from that, and how and when do we really start hiring data talent?
So our challenges are different compared to like a product company, right? Again, it's a catch-22 situation. Do we hire talent and retain them and then look for clients, or do we get clients and get the talent? All right, it's always a tough situation for us, uh, but we have done both, right? Some will keep at least the junior talent on bench, train them based on their skill sets, and we have gone, I would say, like we are not stuck to just like one expertise. uh, to give an example, we have hired somebody who had no exposure to data, right? Somebody was a math or an accounts major, was running his own tutoring and coaching math, and probably like 5 6 years into it realized that doesn't want to continue running his own shop. And we hired that person because of the math skills and the coaching and the training skills. We put a bet on him that this person would be great with our customers because the person knows how to talk to people and has a quantitative mindset, an analytical mindset. So those are obviously our challenges. For a product company, we work with a lot of product and startup companies. Their challenges are again different, in the sense that, just to give an example, we are working with a wearable device company based out in Pittsburgh, and they are trying to analyze workers on a shop floor that before they slip, trip, and fall. And a lot of companies have to lose days or workers compensation and all that. And that's their USP, that workers can wear the device and they'll be warned, or it can detect their heart patterns, breathing rates, BMIs, and everything, and can prevent injuries, right? So for them, when they are building the product and embedding ML and AI into it, the key aspect is that their clients should be trusting the models, obviously, which we are developing for that startup, right? Again, it's a lot of back and forth. As a startup founder, we see our client that they want to push and promise something, right? And we have to push them back that already people are wary about black box models. You just can't go with a small sample size and prove that it's a 95% accuracy, and in reality, if they go on live data, it's not going to reflect the 95% accuracy, right?
For sure.
So the challenges of building false positive models.
Right, right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Like there's a lot of risks to be taken care of when you make those hires the way.
It is. And
Right.
luckily, I got back to my story, right? Of Because I was working in life science and pharmaceutical, biotech, and medtech. I The models which we were built was, a lot of trust has to be done on the accuracy and all the data reflective of what the actual data should be, because it's not just a model for the sake of building a model. These are the models which are going to be deployed in production, and the drugs and the injectables are being manufactured based on those things,
Right.
whether you're throwing the batch away or how the product quality would be.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Somebody can die based on your AI models.
Oh yeah, right. That makes so much sense. So right, I like the point about how you essentially mainly look for like quantitative skills and like how much they can like understand your particular business use case and then put that to use. Not essentially, they don't essentially have to be a domain expert already, right? And so one of the things I've also noticed, well, maybe while I was recruiting for startups or something, that most early hires for startups, the operators they tend to prefer generalists, mostly the full stack folks. So now first hires, not only do they set up the base for the tech stack that you build in your company, but also the culture, right? So from both those aspects, like what are some of the critical skills and qualities, like some non-negotiables that you have when you look for like your founding engineer or like a first junior hire after your founding engineer?
Oh, wow. That's always a challenge based on how much funding you got, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Capital is a
Capital
definitely a
is a
big
key,
factor.
right? If just a 1 million in funding, you're not going to be able to hire a 300K AI/ML engineer. But that apart around the funding, I think one key is the curiosity aspect, right? And that has always helped us, that who we are hiring, how much curiosity over the time frame they have worked, they have shown, right? Have they stuck to just like one thing or two things, because that's what it was in a bigger enterprise, uh, or they have either moved around, or even within the same role they have tried, whether you want to call saying using multiple stack, or what kind of new initiative have they been able to do that at that particular role, right? uh, Other aspect I would highly recommend, and we see this day in and day out for startups. Again, we are a consulting, again, to emphasize that our challenges are different than yours, because your whole startup idea could be doing AI/ML for retail, or AI/ML for traffic or transportation or something. And if your models don't go right, your the startup won't scale. But as far as the funding and the small company scenario, pretty much is the same, that we have to think probably like not even twice, like 10 times before hiring somebody. Okay, two aspects: obviously we're burning the cash flow, and for us it's like they are going to be in front of the client. If they mess up, right, you basically can lose a client, right? So I think those are the two aspects: how curious they are, how well they would be in front of the client, and how well they can express what their models do. Do they really have that deep expertise? Okay, we do so many interviews, and guys wouldn't believe, our 2 to 3 year old junior data scientists have rejected 8 to 10 year experienced folks,
I see.
right?
So like communication is key.
Communication and the technical skills and those depth might not have been in place as to what you are looking for.
Right.
Just the
Right.
number of years on the resume, or they worked at bigger enterprises, doesn't mean they really have the skills which you are looking for.
Right. Right. Got to be specific.
Got to be very, very specific, and you have to really do the due diligence. If you are not a technical founder, you don't know how Python or any stack works, and you can't tell the difference between scikit or science or whatever. Doesn't matter. Get somebody, get your friend, somebody to interview, and really get that technical expertise to uh, have that. That person should have it. Otherwise it can be just people are very good at throwing buzzwords around, trust me.
Right. Right.
Even in interviews they can really talk with all the buzzwords, and you would think that, oh wow, they really know the stuff, but no, they don't know the stuff.
Got it. Got it. So yeah, buzzwords. Let's talk about buzzwords. So generative AI, AI is always evolving, and so yeah, lots of buzzwords and new things coming up every single day, and also all this new infrastructure, new AI, new generative AI talent. It's all expensive, uh, but also at the same time, you don't necessarily have to be an expert. Like you said, if you have like quantitative skills coming from a different background, they are transferable, right? So you might be a technical founder who's capable of judging that, gauging that in
Yeah.
talent, or you might be somebody who is non-technical and have no idea about AI. So even if you are right, even if you hire somebody who's super technical and then they are experienced in a certain AI background, they might have to pivot to a completely new set of tools depending on new requirements that arise. So on that front, how do you build a team that is future ready, not just buzzwords ready?
Oh wow, yeah. That's a really tough one, right? Again, it's the flexibility and the curiosity they showcase, right? We all know how tech stacks evolve, right? All tech stacks, probably what they are current, in 10 years later they might not be current.
Hmm.
Even if it's the same company, whether you're working with a Microsoft stack, or AWS stack, or like with Microsoft with Databricks, or Google, sorry to throw some technical products here, right? Or a Google stack, right? Things change all the time, right? So they have to be very curious, especially for startups. Things probably more than stack, I think it could easily change or pivot around the business idea. We know a lot of startups pivot, right? Something is not working, might be a minor drift, or might be a complete pivot, right? because I don't know, somebody came up with a better idea and they got 100 million in funding, and the VCs no longer want to entertain their idea, right? So we don't, unless you are really looking at a stage where your team is set and the tech stack is set, then it's okay that I want to look for an Azure data engineer, or I want to look for somebody with a GCP skill set or something, right? Our engineers, like, migrate easily from Azure to AWS to GCP or whatever the tech stack is. So we don't worry much about the tech stack. We worry more about what hands-on skills have they in a one particular tech stack, and can they easily migrate to that with some decent experience around a one tech stack. I think it's like saying R and Python, right? Somebody with R can easily switch to Python if they've really done the job, right? If somebody who is in even with like 5 years of experience in Python have not worked well, or have not developed like production ready ML models, I don't think they'll be able to do it. So that's the key, right? So how strong that person or curious and inquisitive is, what are the hands-on learning skills and hands-on production level ready models have they deployed.
Right, right. So there are certain like non-negotiables like production experience.
Production experience, right? I can go on building so like 50 Kaggle models, right?
Not everything is like a flexible
Not
requirement.
everything is like flexible, right?
Got it.
As I again joke with my students that whatever data sets they see in my class, that's the easiest data sets they will ever see in life. That's never going to happen.
That is true.
Right? How complex things can easily become when it becomes like production ready.
Yes, definitely. Right. So also like on that front, right? Certain things being a definite requirement, and certain things you can keep it flexible. So you're like, you can adjust according to the requirements that are in the future. But for like a founder who has a very specific product, like they are working, say, on like customer management or something, and they want a particular area where they want to build AI solutions around it. How serious is a requirement for somebody specialized in that?
Oh, then definitely you need those specialization skills. It's like just to give an example, we are working with a client, manufactures blinds, and they had a specific requirement around developing an ML model around pricing strategy, right? So it's like, what does it entail? It entails there are different legal entities, okay, in US and Europe. That's at a macro level. Then at next level comes like various products. In those various products, then you have various attributes, right? So the same product could be non-motorized, could be motorized, could be with insect, could be with something else, right? So you're now taking all those various attributes and then developing a pricing model where the discount happens, which season the discount happens, right? So you're taking all of that attribute into account. If this was something related to a startup, they would definitely need that kind of specific experience, right? Here we are basically providing services, so there is the back and forth that they are relying on our consulting and technical skills, and we are relying on them for the subject matter expertise, right? So we have that leverage. But if you are a startup, you don't have that back and forth, right? That person is in house, so something like related to CRM or a retail sector or a transportation sector, you definitely need that expertise, because it takes time to get the domain. Even for us, right, we switch from domains to domains, but when it comes to domains where we have like deep expertise, or we have worked with at least 4 to 5 clients in that domain, it's a complete different ball game when we approach a potential new client, right? Because we have that expertise, we talk the language, and they know, oh yeah, it's life sciences, these guys can do it. It's wearable devices, these guys have done it. It's the story speaks for itself.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely, like having background in the same domain.
Yeah,
that definitely helps.
It's challenge just to find generalist is a challenge. So I don't want to be in founder's shoes when they are looking for a specific those kind of niche skill sets.
Right.
But luckily we are in Boston.
Right.
So there's
You
a lot
do
of
have
talent.
a lot of talent.
There's a
right?
lot of talent.
Right. Gotcha. So yeah, so now we're talking about getting a dream team here, but I also want to touch upon one of the points you said earlier. Like a lot of startups do start in one area and then they pivot. Yeah, maybe I recently know a friend got into YC, and then like after uh, the VC came in and gave the funds, they're like, I like only this part of the idea. Let's build something else around it, and then they pivot.
Yeah.
Even after like multiple levels of funding, they kind of completely pivot. So even if you have the dream team, what if the dream changes, right? So you kind of have to be in a position where you're ready for that. So I see one of the key things that happen is that when you are the very first person trying to find a co-founder, a technical co-founder, like get your very initial hire, um, what are some inclusivity considerations you should have? Because I see in many cases you could easily get like personally blindsided based on individual experiences and like particular attachments to your dream goal.
Oh, that can definitely happen for a startup, right? We all have our own experiences and our background, right? If you are an engineer, you always tend to think that only engineers can solve the problem, right? It's default, right? Uh, we both can relate to that,
Yeah.
being an engineer. But as I told, right, of our example, we have had an accounts major, we have had a physics major. In fact, she's one of our superstars right now. We have placed her in front of almost every client over last 3 years, and she has been successful, right? So it is little bit tricky. Like, how do you get out of the mindset that only a engineer or a computer science graduate uh, would be good enough to join your team, right? You have to intentionally think through that it's okay to at least interview, right? You might not be able to hire that person because the skill sets don't match exactly when you are looking for in early stages, but you have to intentionally, go out and see if there is somebody, and not get blindsided saying, oh, that person has a physics major or an accounts major and doesn't, we are not looking for that. We're only looking for engineers, right? It usually happens with software development when you are developing. So same thing can happen with ML also, that the person doesn't have strong software dev skills or a lot of programming, under the belt, and we are like, oh, probably you don't want to hire them, but it's not the case.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
AI is ubiquitous and
Yeah,
like everybody's
right.
using it. So
Lot of low code, no code
mm,
solutions, depending on what, again, goes back to what stack you are using, how immediate is your roadmap, right? Especially for founders, that's another challenge, right? How immediate is your roadmap, right? Is it like 3 months, 6 months, and obviously how much cash you have
right. Yeah.
boils down to that, probably for
Definitely.
startups.
Oh yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, gotta be aware of how fat the wallet is to make those decisions. But okay, yeah. So let's say we have the dream team, right? We have AI talent that is diverse, that has domain relevance as well. They understand your particular product, and now with this, how can we like complete like make sure we fully leverage this AI team? So so you come from a consulting background, you work with startups coming from multiple different industries. So when you put one of your like AI talent in front of them, part of your AI team in front of them, how can you ensure cross-functional collaboration? How do you keep them creative?
Our talent or working with them creative.
Overall, like how do you ensure collaboration that
So what we do is like a blended thing. uh, Depends on what the technical talent is. We, with our experience of, me, my co-founder, and my partner, we bring in like 20 plus years of technology consulting experience, and we understand the business side of things. So that's a key where you need to add, with a technical person, right? Just to give an example, 2 or 3 weeks ago, a general manager at a client asks our data scientist, but just by looking at the data, can you get a feeling about the EBITDA, right? To expect a technical person who has never gone into business and to understand the nuances of EBITDA is ridiculous, right? But this is a client. I can't tell the client that this is ridiculous, right? So that's like one of the aspects of it, right? But that happens all the time. If you are talking about working with different BUs or business units or line of business, that's going to happen all the time. So what we like to tell our team is try to understand the business and try to understand the functional aspect, and never worry about the data or the tool or the tech stack. Okay, that's a key which has helped us all the time, right? So what that helps the opposite person or the stakeholder, or our clients, that okay, these guys are putting on all the energy and the effort to understand our business and our problem statement. Okay, even they are not worried about which tool we are using and what they're what at the end of the day matters is how well can can you solve the problem statement, right?
Right,
I
right, yeah.
still keep saying that if you are able to solve, a problem statement back of the envelope, nobody wants to deploy an ML model,
Oh yeah, definitely.
right? And then you can claim it as an ML model and charge them. That's a different story. But nobody wants to deploy an ML model in production if you can solve it, right? That's why Excel is still the favorite tool in data.
Right. Don't use ML if you don't need it.
If you don't need it,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
And
that makes a lot
and
of
it
sense.
happens all the time, right? It happens. It's going to happen with you as a startup founder, because you have promised something to either your angel investors or your VCs, or you are seeking that round of funding, and AI, ML, or generative AI being the buzzword, you want to deploy it, right? Going back to our wearable device, one of our wearable device customer, they had just like initial stage, they had just like 4 attributes to develop, like their person is wearing the device, it measures like 4 attributes at various frequency. Some signals are coming at 4 hertz, some are coming at 32 hertz, some are coming at 64 hertz. You have to normalize the data, right? You have to make sure the model is good. Data challenges, the founder still wants to go out potential client and potential investors that this is a 95% accuracy model and can detect patterns, right? Again, a small narrow window. They are also pivoting, adding more sensors, and now they are more features. But that's the challenge always, right? How much of the data is there that you want to deploy those models?
Got it. Got it. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Tricky
focus on
tricky situation.
right. Yeah. So focus on the functionality and the problem solving.
Problem
Right.
solving.
And don't tell your client they're ridiculous.
No.
All right. All right. So okay. So let's also talk more about that particular aspect of working with the client, and as you grow, as growth also factors in. How do you scale up? Like say you are already operational, you have your co-founders or you have your founding engineers. When at what time do you decide that it is time for getting more infrastructure or more people to join the team?
I think that would relate back to how much of the data you are consuming. Okay, you're talking about the talent scaling, or you're talking about the stack and the infra scaling,
Let's talk about both.
right? So infra scaling would be primarily around how much of the data you are consuming, right? Uh, or how much of the data is coming in. So in that stage, are you from a normal, lake house or a data lake? You are scaling it to a lake house, and from that infra perspective, then do you need like a DevOps engineer or a data ops engineer? And down the stage with all that data, if you are building, are you going to get into ML ops and all, right? So it's a sequential step based on the data. If the data is coming at a high frequency and you need to run ML calculations, again, then comes the GPU picture, right? Do you get those GPUs in place to run the ML models, or they can run still on your local or a network drives and stuff?
Right. So that
Yeah.
is the point where you decide if you want like a specialist. So if some of the early hires, they usually tend to be like full stack. And going forward, you want like a machine learning engineer or a data engineer or a data scientist, a person that works on one particular part of the stack. So at what times do we make that decision on when we need like
So at
specialists?
that stage, you will definitely need to hire specialists around it, right? Because you need like the DevOps, data ops kind of person in place,
Mhm.
right? You need just one person who's doing the ML model, right? You can't expect that person to even build the pipeline, run the ML model, do from dev, QA, dev, and prod, and the whole life cycle, right? That's not going to be possible. That somebody who's good with ML is also going to be good with your data warehouse and data pipeline and architecture or data bricks or Azure or anything.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, so it's a tricky, challenging situation. Again, for enterprises, it's a different story, right? They can hire, they know what it's not the VC money and things like that. For startups and mid-range, again, it gets a little bit trickier. But as the data scales up, you will need those infra and the people in place. Otherwise, you're going to be not making any value out of your asset, which is data.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So let the data drive the decisions.
Data would drive the decisions around both the infra and the hiring.
Got it.
And that's what we see all the time, that right? Just to give another example, we have a client which is into safety and PPE, and they took one of our data engineers, and now they want somebody who can do more advanced, like complete data architecture and data ops kind of, right? So now it's like, okay, your data engineer is great, but we need somebody with like this whole architecture mindset who can take our data warehouse and get into this new architecture lake house and all that we're putting.
Oh yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, right. So let's build from this point, right? So we have the team, we understand particular requirements, we have specialists, we have everybody to tackle every single part of the data problem we have at hand. We can build the data solution completely. And at this point, right, how we have the dream team, how do we make sure that the dream team achieves the dream? So let's talk about in terms of how we can seamlessly integrate the solution into the particular line of business you're working on.
So two aspects are right. If it's like a product or a SaaS product, it's there is one aspect to it. Then the other aspect is, are you deploying those models on a hardware,
Right.
right? So we have seen those both the aspects, right? If it's a SaaS, that means you're not looking at like latency. I mean, you in a way you're looking at latency and those aspects in addition to, I'm not getting into the accuracy aspects and the precision and the bias and all that, right? So that aspect is always there. What I'm also saying is from a technology perspective and people perspective, you are looking for how well they can embed those data models and the whether it's dashboards or the ML models, or how well they can be embedded on a hardware device on the edge, or whatever the problem statement is, right? So both different skill sets, right? If it's on the edge, then you have to start thinking about what level of latency and frequency, memory, and everything. So various factors or facets to make that model successful. To going back to the question on like retaining the team and making sure the team is successful, uh, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody, because now you are talking about whether they are working in silos, right? The ML person can totally say, I'm waiting for the data pipeline to finish and the data to come in. The data pipeline person might say, oh, I don't have all access to all the data sources to come into the lakehouse. And the reporting and dashboard person might say, it's not BI ready, right? So it's a challenge, and somebody at a senior level who understands those various pieces, aspects of it, will have to really take the onus. Otherwise, it can really lead to a lot of delays, and we see that all the time, that it lead to a lot of delays.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. What about the metrics in terms of both like technical metrics and also the financial metrics of it to track like progress and also the impact of the work you're doing? So like KPIs and linking it to them.
Yeah, sure. Right. So again, it changes from various industry to industry, right? When we work with manufacturing, especially like say pharmaceutical or biotech or a med device, one of the KPIs is basically, if you're in a biotech company, uh, if your ML model saves even what we call as one batch of run, that itself is your ROI right there. Okay, because one batch in a biotech and a pharma can cost millions of dollars. Yeah. So now not only you have saved the money for that, including the raw material and all that, but if you count, and all of us know how much drugs and uh, medicines cost, right? So you are looking at basically loss of revenue in millions, right? Not even counting, if you just, even if you don't count like the revenue, even if you count the raw material cost and the labor cost and all, just to go into that batch, uh, that's your ROI right there. Okay. Other aspects is, so that's one aspect, right, on ROI. Other aspect is, if that product, or whether it's a batch or like a drug or a med device or even a wearable device, if that doesn't meet the criteria, right, quality criteria, and your model is not taking into account those information, and you have deployed a model which is false in a way where it should not have been, or a true, right, where it should not have been, then basically, again, it can lead to an injury, it can lead to a death or whatever, right? So those are like serious implications. Uh, so again, right, ML and all is great, but when models are deployed in production, has to be really, really accurate from that perspective. So those are just the key matrix or financial KPIs which we work with. And again, everybody has different criteria. The clients are not going to tell us, unfortunately, that they saved so much money all the time. But as a product or an enterprise company, you're very well aware of it in an in-house setting.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I like the point about um, keeping it crucial to track cost of errors.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that can sometimes a single error can be catastrophic.
It is, and it, easily can lead to a wrong model predicting something, whether it's the noise or completely different bias.
Absolutely, absolutely. That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, yeah, great. And yeah, I did want to ask you this one more question as well, something that we didn't plan before, but I know that you have been a adjunct lecturer at Tufts and you teach a data analytics program there. Sort of met with a lot of students
Yeah.
through that, and so I'm sure there's a lot of students here as well, and also joining us virtually. So for students, right, who want to start up in the data space, build an AI ML solution, build a company around that, or for also students who want to go join a startup and help the founders build their AI ML infrastructure. What are some good ways to go about it? What's your advice for them?
Learn as much as you can. Uh, uh, Two aspects to it, right? One is either you're looking for a job or you want to start something. Obviously, starting is a different ball game than just looking for a job. Most of the time, students ask me, what they should do to get a job. As like any craft, even this takes time. Okay, you can't expect just like out of grad school, if you're not understood what the data aspect is or how the industry works, to straight away uh, that you'll find a job and somebody would hire you to deploy models in production. Yeah, I didn't get the chance. If somebody got a chance, that's great. They are smarter. I'm not. But they can develop the skill sets to get up to that point. And in today's day and age, it's easier relatively to develop those skill sets, right? Most of the tools are open source. Okay. There are tons of data sets out there, whether it's Kaggle, Stack Overflow, or anything. And then there is GitHub, where you can showcase your skill sets, right? So I always say that make it easier for somebody to find you, or even if when you are applying, make it easier for them to get out of that hurdle that this person has the skills, basic skills, right? If you have a strong GitHub or your own website or whatever, and you have listed all the projects, that means I know that you know at least this part of it, right? Every resume, if you look at it, like we get so many resumes and students show me all the resume. Everybody has done a bachelor's, they're doing a master's. Everybody knows Python, R, Tableau, Power BI. Some of them have no something on the data engineering side, but everything is plain same, right? You can replace my name with your name, wouldn't matter as a graduate student, right? So those are the skill sets which people or students, I say, that they need to develop when they're going out there. Make it easy uh, for somebody who's interviewing you to know, okay, that this person knows at least basic. And the other thing I like to say from the movie Taken, right? Like say like Liam Neeson, right? I don't know who you are, but I will find you, right? Or I know who you are. Either ways, I don't know whatever. But I know the second part of the dialogue. I will find you, right? So if you are good, people will find you. And I tell them trust us. Obviously, they don't trust me. I tell them trust us. We are on the other side of the equation, right? We are trying to find talent, and trust me, it is tough. It is really tough, right? And we are in Boston, we are in Chicago, and we are in Mumbai, really big cities, and still it is tough to find really good talent. Like it's like you want somebody with data skills, you want somebody with strong technical skills, you want somebody with curiosity, You want somebody to be in front of the client. You want somebody to communicate well. If all of this matches, then you want somebody to gel with your culture, right? So basically, are the and we tell our team who are interviewing at an early stage that if you are not going to be happy working with them, don't even bother sending the profile to me for the final round, because even if the person is great and you're not going to be able to work with them, it's a straight no, right? So it's a lot of challenge, right? So that's from a job perspective. From a startup idea perspective, again, it's how how good of an idea it is, and how driven you are to execute it, like any startup.
Right,
Right.
right.
Nothing beats like as most of the VCs tell, like, or any startup conferences you attend, ideas are dime a dozen, right? How well you execute, it all depends on that. So I have dabbled into few product ideas. I couldn't take it to execute it. I didn't even open a shop. So forget about closing a shop like you, right? So finally I decided, you know what? At least services, I know that I'll make some bread and butter for. So but it is challenging. It is challenging. But there is, luckily there is, for students there is tools in universities. At least I know for Tufts they have like a high performance computing, access to GPU. At least I don't know how much time and all, I don't use it, but a lot of resources to tap into.
Absolutely, yeah. I
Yeah.
totally agree with
Yeah.
that sentiment. Gotta put yourself out there and
Yeah.
differentiate
Yeah,
yourself.
put yourself out there.
Yeah,
Just network. Yeah, networking is the key.
right, right. Yeah, that's another.
People have forgotten nowadays to network. So thanks to you guys, you are organizing these conferences that at least students can attend. But last semester was the first class of the semester, of fall semester, and usually in the first class, after I'm done with introductions and stuff, I ask my students to get up and talk with each other, and I tell them, these are your 25, 30 peers who are going to go to 30 different companies and going to do 30 various domains, various or wonderful things in their career. If it's the easiest way to talk to them. So
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, for sure, for sure. Yeah, this was great. I'll keep all this in mind. Try to remember as much as possible.
yeah.
When I start up again, maybe I should hire you as a advisor to help me build.
Sure.
But yeah, this was great. And yeah, that kind of concludes the questions I have.
Oh, cool.
And I think we have about 20 minutes left. And yeah, we'll open it to the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, right over there.
So to continue your conversation, maybe a little bit beyond the startup. In the past, I've witnessed data organizations, two types of data organizations sort of grow within organizations. One's really focused on analytics and business intelligence, and another one might be interested in data products. That's where your machine learning engineers and your data scientists are. Now, I've witnessed conflict with those two separate organizations growing that way. Are you seeing any trend of trying to bring them together, maybe more of a unified data practice within companies?
Companies have started doing it, but that has been the normal route. I'll tell you how, like, and why it happens, or it has happened with at least few of our clients. Obviously, this is just an outsider perspective. They know it better. So the BI and the reporting aspect, or the organization aspect, happens because, again, everybody has data. Data warehouses have been in place for a long time, whether you want to call it on-prem SQL Server or then moving into cloud, right, or anything. And the reporting needs have been there also for quite some time, right? If you talk about, like, Tableau or Power BI, they have been in place for at least like 10 years. Before that, there were like Oracle and Cognosis of the world, MicroStrategies and stuff, right? They were there. So the reporting needs have been in place, right? Just the years ago, it was IT or Oracle SMEs who would develop those reports. Now it's thanks to drag and drop, everybody can develop a report, right? So that has grown, or that organization or that piece of the organization grows kind of, sequentially over the time. The ML piece is like a new piece, right? Now you want to build whether just the models, or you want to take some of our data and make it as a data product, right? So that new piece is there, but that new piece is still dependent on how well the data is there in the lake house, or or your cloud or anything, right? So how do you make this ML piece integrate with all? And as you start building the ML piece, you realize that you need the financial data also, because the CTO, or they want to understand what are the how well your model is performing, right? Not just this aspect, but can you okay, where if you analyze the historical data, the next step is, can I use your ML model to decide when should I start giving discounts, right? Giving an example of the same, like blind manufacturing company, they want to uh, take those pricing ML models and say, okay, when do I get the discounts? Which dealer should I be focusing on, right? Should I be focusing on dealer A in Netherlands and not worried about dealer B, C, and D in France, because dealer A knows how to optimize the discounts we have given. So the lot of those implications, right? So now, if you don't have the relevant dealer data and the CRM data or the sales data, right, whatever channel you are using, that needs to be dumped in, right? So that's where the alignment needs to happen, and the shift saying, uh, this organization and this organization has to be, a regroup, or a reorg has to happen somewhere. Yeah. And we just saw it happen with one of our client uh, last month, that a senior director at a BI level is now taking ownership or directly reporting to the CIO, not just on the this, but on the ML piece, as well as across US and Europe both, because for them the ML model should be deployed in both the areas. So that's where we are seeing, and why that mismatch
Structuring everybody under a head of data.
under head of AI. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just to touch on that note, yeah, that is a common kind of pattern that we see lately. Like even in big tech, with a lot of these layoffs and a lot of these reorgs that's happening, a common aspect of the rebuild that they're doing is that all the data is kind of like unified. Like they're like two different teams. One is like product-based data science, and one is analytics-based data science. They're competing for resources. They still pull from that one database that has the complete operational and the research information of that particular product. And I mainly come from the product-based deployment side. And another aspect that works on the deployment end is to align on the metrics overall. So like if you take like Facebook's ad engine, maybe like one team would be like completely, as a deployment engineer, we're going to be probably fully focused on which ads get the highest clicks. But then also there's an analytics team coming and reporting to us that, okay, these ads do get clicks, but at the same time, there are certain ads that didn't get clicks. People ignored it. They didn't even load. They had so many other technical bugs with it. But then every time they clicked, they purchased, and we made a good commission out of it. So maybe now we pivot into deploying a new model that says these are the ads that have the highest revenue for us per click. And that kind of alignment on the final metrics that works across teams, that also is something that kind of noticed product managers moving into, to get all teams aligned and a single product that works for all.
Hi, Nita. I had a question. So, when you begin your company, On Point Insights, I believe you started off with data science pertaining to pharma related.
Yeah.
But over time, when you built the company, you were able to you talked about business ceilings, EBITDA models, and stuff. So, how was that progression? Was it just through experience and understanding? And are there occasions where some clients come to you and you might have to refuse them because of your company not having that domain expertise to reach their goals?
Yeah, no, totally right. So first question, right? So we started with manufacturing and life sciences because that's what my background was, right? As I said right before, I was a chemical engineer. So initial clients was through word of mouth, right? Somebody was my client from a previous company, and I would go begging, right? Hey, I'm starting on my own. Do you have some work, right? Kind of it. And they're like, oh yeah, sure, we have this small 1 month gig. or something. Or the thing would be like, hey, we are looking for not a contractor but a full time. Do you want to join us? Those were the two things. As we grew and we had started hiring people, two things worked in our favor. Obviously, one was me and my founder, partner. He joined me like 4 years later. He comes from Accenture background, like management consulting. I was more on the technology consulting side. Luckily, I had worked in services all my life, right? So all client facing and all. And in from day one, we had maintained, and we still do, that the business aspect is more important than a tool or a model or anything, right? Till the time we won't understand the business, we won't be successful, even after the client gives the project, right? Our consulting backgrounds helped us, and again, the curiosity to learn, right? uh, that we could go into a retail environment like a furniture company, a blind company. We could go into a safety wearable device companies, and many times we would just say that, do you have, and like a startup, do you have any technical papers around your domain which we should be reading, right? We don't know that aspect. So it's, you just have to be honest about it upfront, right? That we don't know this domain. This is the first time we are working. And they're like, yeah, sure, these are the few papers which will help you. And once you start reading them and making sense of it and asking, like, pertinent questions to the client knows that, okay, these guys are getting it now. Obviously, you can't drag it for 1 year. Initially, you just have to, show that learning, but that learnings have helped. And then luckily we are in a industry where data is data. Once you get a sense of what the business does and what the problem statement is, then it helps. But that has helped us, to be honest. Cool.
Yeah, that sounds great. Any more questions? Anything on the virtual attendees joining us? All set? All right. Okay. I think we still have about 10 minutes to spare. Okay. That is Nirav Shah, everybody. And one other small closing note is that, yeah, I've also been a part of Startup Boston. And so this last year, I've been part of designing the data and engineering track of events. So we have a bunch of data events happening today and like engineering events also happening over the coming days. So yeah, that is my name, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you have any feedback about how the events today went, about the data track, and you have thoughts on it, yeah, particularly if it's bad feedback, hit me up on LinkedIn. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you,
Thanks,
Nirav. This was great.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Nirav. Yeah, also we have the welcome party that is presented by HPE today evening by 6 p.m. at Suffolk University. I would like everyone to join that. And the next session is starting by 1:15. And whoever want to join, please have your QR code ready to scan, and we'll be coming around to scan those for the next session. And I'd like to thank everyone who are here coming. And for those who are in the early stages of your startup, this Friday you will get the opportunity to share your venture at the Startup Boston Week closing